Hello, everyone. I see that people are still coming, so let's allow another minute for them to join. For a while, sit comfortably, refresh your drinks, and be prepared for the takeoff. We are starting in 30 seconds or so. And it's now the time. So once again, hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our AI in ITSM Tools webinar. Today, we will be exploring how artificial intelligence is redefining IT service management, what has already happened, what is happening right now, and what to expect tomorrow. This webinar is based on our research we conducted this year together with some of the ITIL accredited tool vendors, ATVs, and Stephen Mann, a principal analyst and content director at itsm.tools. Just in case you didn't know this, ITSM Tools is an ITSM-focused portal providing content that ranges from ITSM tool reviews, blogs, and industry news to ITSM and ITIL tips and best practices. Moreover, I'm delighted to announce that today's webinar we are running together with Steven. So, hi Steven, welcome, and very nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks, Dimitri. It's good to be here.
My name is Dmitry. I'm working at PeopleCert. I'm a portfolio director responsible for partner programs, and I would really like to start the session. First of all, I will provide you some background about this research and report that was the result of this research. But I would really like to start with a bit of a background, what we are doing in AI space currently and what we has done in 2025. So 3 essential works that presented on the slides are as follows. First of all, we have this ATV program, and ATV program is about ITIL accreditation for tool vendors. As part of this accreditation, we assess tool vendor software tools, and for this we have software assessment model. In 2025, we significantly revised this software assessment model, and one of the key topics, one of the key changes that we introduced in this model was adding some AI-specific use cases, AI-specific criteria, so that we can better understand how ITSM tools support ITSM processes for end customers across the globe. So the first major change was done for the software assessment model. It happened in June, I guess. And after this, we started this AI in ITSM tools research, which is the key topic for today's session. So I will provide a little bit more details about this later on. In parallel, in July or August maybe, we started working on another paper presented on the screen, which is called ITIL AI Governance Guide. And we presented this paper on some public events recently this year. And it's essentially a practical guide which provides you with a step-by-step approach on how to evaluate your current governance, identify governance pattern that you use, and stress test your existing governance approach against AI challenges to better understand what needs to be improved and how this can be improved. So all these 3 materials, all these 3 sources of information are available for you online. The links are on the screen. And now from this moment, we will focus on AI in ITSM tools research presented in the center of the screen. A short introduction about the research itself. So we work together with 11 ITIL accredited tool vendors. Their logos are on the screen. So very different companies, different scale, different types of customers, different regions, different languages they speak. We essentially worked with them. We shared 66 functional criteria, 66 AI use cases with them, and asked them to run self-assessment against those criteria so that we better understand which functions are supported right now and which functions might be supported in the future. And on top of this, after we collected this information about tools, about criteria, about technical stuff, we also had some talking sessions with all tool vendors involved to collect some sound bites from their side. It was also quite interesting to collect their view on what's happening in the industry and how AI as a technology will shape this industry in the future. So that was the stage. What specifically we asked them? So we actually provided them with 66 functional criteria, and we provided them with 4 possible options to answer. The options are presented on the screen. So the first option was, yes, this is a commercially available out-of-the-box feature, which essentially means that our customers can benefit from this feature right now. It's available in our product, and they can start using this probably by buying something, but it's not something that really needs to be investigated or developed. It's already there. The second option is this feature is under development and will be available soon, which essentially means that we are pretty much confident that this feature might be valuable for our customers, that this feature is technically feasible. So we are working on the implementation of its feature right now, and it will become available to our customers through our product offerings tomorrow. The third option here is we are currently experimenting with this functionality in implementation projects. So we are not absolutely sure that this is something that will be commercially successful, but we are working with our customers in implementation projects to learn more about this, to learn from this experience, to understand how to approach this, and how to make this functionality available to our customers as a typical something that we work on during the implementation project or as a commercial feature. And finally, no, this functionality is not available. And these 4 options were applied to every single AI use case that we shared with the tool vendors. And these use cases span 20 ITIL practices presented on the screen. These are 20 ITIL practices supported by the ATV assessment model. So this was pretty much the first step of the assessment when we just discovered how specific AI features are presented in the tools and what our current our accredited tool vendors currently working on. So some examples of use cases. This is the last slide before we can start discussing our findings in this research. Some example of use cases that we shared with our tool vendors. And by the way, one of the best parts is that the whole list, the entire list of use cases is part of the assessment report, which you could just download from our website. So you can take a look at all these use cases on your own. You can evaluate how these use cases might be valuable for your specific situation, might be applied to your case, and maybe benefit from a conversation with your tool vendors about these use cases if you believe that some of them might be valuable for you. So all these use cases are available to you in the report, and just a brief overview of what's presented on the screen. So let's take a look at change enablement section, for example. We had 5 use cases in this section. So let's just briefly overview them. Virtual assistant to scheduling for scheduling CAB meetings based on availability of its participants. Quite a straightforward thing. AI-assisted change scheduling by considering resource availability, agreed maintenance windows, and potential change overlaps. And this is one of the interesting features because I believe that in many cases, especially when we have a mixture of deadline-driven tasks and capacity-driven tasks, and these tasks actually require quite different resources, and these tasks are being executed in quite a complicated technical environment, it would be quite valuable to have some technical assistance from the technology to help us schedule things to minimize risks, to realize the most value we possibly can. The next feature is AI-enabled summarization of complex changes for management reporting. This is more or less easy thing, and you can see that most tool vendors support this feature currently in their commercial products. It's not something that should be further investigated or further analyzed. It's something that could be used today. The next one is AI-driven capability to detect unauthorized changes based on infrastructure data, configuration information, and change records. And finally, automatic identification of potential issues caused by proposed changes. Again, in complex environment, it might be extremely helpful to have some support from technology to identify potential risks that might be connected with this or that change request. So these are some examples, and this table also shows that we share the information in our report, which features are mostly commercial available right now, and which features are currently not available, and tool vendors even are not working on them so that we can hope that this feature will be available tomorrow. So now let's jump to key findings. So Steven, could you please walk through this, what we found during this report, some top players, some surprises, some underdogs, with some comments on what we found and what was a surprise for you and how we can explain it.
Yeah, sure. It's probably also worth saying a few things about the previous slide that people will notice if they download the report, or I see you're putting it back up, that sometimes there was 0% availability on the use cases that we chose to include. And I don't know whether we expected that or not, but what is good to see is that if things aren't available, they are still use cases that are coming through the ATB pipeline. So there's probably already R&D involved, whether that's development or experimentation. And as we'll talk through today, where we see in Dimitri's slide that some things are in red, we can understand reasons for that. We also have some, they're not, I wouldn't call them outliers because they're not outliers. We have some interesting ITIL practices or ITSM processes where things are perhaps different or slightly different to what we expected, probably because we hadn't put, I say we, the royal we, because I hadn't put enough thought into whether they'd be different or not. But we'll get to those as we go through. So one of the things that when Dimitri first showed the results coming into me, it looked familiar. And again, I hadn't stopped to think about it. But if you think about this logically, there's a couple of things that come to the fore. The first thing is that IT service management tool vendors, the ATVs in this instance, are going to follow customer demand. And customer demand is going to be driven by the practices that are most prevalent in organizations. So there should be some level of strong correlation between previous PeopleCert or Axelos outputs, such as I think it was the 2022 ITSM benchmarking report. So common sense and logic says that where the vendors are going to be investing most in is going to align-ish to the practices that customer organizations are adopting. And that's what we found really. That's the top players bit in Dimitri's slide, that you expect incident management, service request management, knowledge management's an interesting one, and we'll come back to that one in a minute. Problem management and then the other things, the other practices as well. That these are probably to be expected, and they are probably the things that your organization is looking to use AI, or the areas they're looking to use AI in as well. I mean, knowledge management is an interesting one because a lot of organizations have invested in knowledge management, but also a lot of organizations have struggled with knowledge management, not so much with the technology side of things, but with the labor side of things, that it can, or traditionally has been, a very labor intensive practice, a very valuable practice, but a very difficult one to A, get right, and B, to maintain over time. I mean, I remember I first got into knowledge management, I think it was around about 1999 or 2000, so I'm showing my age. And the in-joke was that the corporate knowledge base was where knowledge articles or knowledge went to die, that you could spend a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort capturing valuable knowledge, but it didn't necessarily get to a point where people were using it in anger and determining or gaining the value from it. So knowledge management to me, and I think a lot of the vendors as well are seeing this too, is a good example of where you're not simply automating the status quo, you're able to really enhance it such that it's going to sound cheesy, but the practice really comes to life, that you are able to achieve things with it rather than invest a lot of time and effort for potentially minimal return. So knowledge management was a surprise, but it's not included in the surprises section. Change enablement, again, was a surprise, but again, using logic. If you think about where many organizations have gone with change management or change enablement over the last, I say, few years, longer than a few years now, adopting lean or agile or DevOps capabilities, change enablement was always going to be one where you're not necessarily trying to follow the ITIL practice per se, that you're probably blending it with other practices or other insights from elsewhere. So it's sort of unsurprising for me that tool vendors have found it a somewhat tricky place to invest in terms of the customer demand, because the customer demand isn't purely ITSM anymore, and you've got those AI capabilities perhaps in other tools that are already there or will complement a lesser level of investment in change. Release and deployment as well sort of sits in the same boat for me, and I've only just seen that Dimitri has it on his slide here. So we've got DevOps and Agile practices and tools there. So it's one of those areas where AI is more than likely being used, but not necessarily in the ITSM tool, or a slither or a subset of what's possible is being used, but there's a wealth of other capabilities in other tools or systems.
Yeah, and we also found some, we call them underdogs, right?
Yeah, I really like this term. This is Dimitri's term, so I can't take any credit for it. That there were practices where, for different reasons, or at least we concluded there are different reasons, and I'll talk through those. Different reasons as to why these practices didn't have the same level of AI investment as the ones that were in the winners or the champions. I can't remember what term we used to describe them a moment ago, Dimitri, and we conveniently tried to put them into groupings. And a lot of this came from a nice little bubble chart that Dimitri created on this to try and group different types of, I'm going to call them underinvested practices. That might be overstating things. They just haven't received the same level of investment as the incident management, the service request management, etc. So the first group was relationship management, service financial management, and supplier management. And the common theme for these is, well, firstly, something like service financial management, everybody does it, but they don't necessarily say that they have adopted the ITIL practice or the related ITIL practice. But also, they've probably got other tools or systems that they use beyond their traditional ITSM platforms to deliver the capabilities across these three. I mean, service financial management is something very close to my heart that I've gone on about it for at least the last 15 years, if not even longer, that we need to be better at it. And there are great opportunities to leverage AI capabilities in this space, but we're not seeing at the moment ATVs investing in it. And it makes sense because you're probably going to use your ERP system or your financial system, whatever you want to call it, and the AI-based capabilities that are either in there or starting to come within those tools. The next group, availability management, the capacity and the information security management, again, it's likely that the automation is being seen in other IT management tools or systems. And in some respects, you've also got, if you remember earlier on, I said about some ITIL practices are adopted more than others, and organizations have success with some ITIL practices more than they do others too. Availability and capacity management, whilst I think we can all sit here and say they're really important, saying that you are using it with your IT service management tool, again, you can be limited by what's already included in the IT service management tool. And that's no disrespect to the IT service management tools. Vendors will put in the capabilities that customers are asking for or demand or are finding necessary. So again, we can understand why these three are underdogs. That combination of it's not necessarily something that is supported or enabled by the IT service management tool. Organizations are more likely to use a third-party tool to benefit them, and hopefully we're still not in spreadsheet safe for capacity and performance management.
Yeah, and traditional monitoring
then,
platforms might be quite powerful and provide features in the space for both availability and capacity management. So it's not only about classical ITSM platforms that were focused on this particular research.
Yeah, and then the final two on the list was service level management, which was a surprise, and we tried to think logically about it, and service continuity management. The service level management one is interesting, and I've seen this a lot over the years with different tools servicing different customers in different geographies, and the customers are at different sizes with different levels of maturity. And service level management is an interesting practice that you can have a spectrum, not only in organizations, but also across the tools that in tool A, you could have, a very broad and deep set of service level management capabilities. But in another tool at the other end of the spectrum, service level management is realistically service level target management, or sometimes they call it SLA management. So it's very much less about the documentation and the bigger structures, and more about the individual targets that sit within them. And it's something that we're seeing with experience management these days, or digital experience management.
Mm-hmm.
And in some respects, that's also a secondary reason, I think, why service level management is perhaps an underdog, to use that term, that we are on a cusp of moving, not necessarily moving away from, but from complementing more traditional SLA targets with more experience-based targets. And again, service continuity management, to me, it sort of sits with the previous set of three, that people are more likely to use another tool for it. So it's not something that A is going to be in many IT service management tools. And then secondly, it's because it's not in there, and because customers aren't asking about it from an ITSM tool perspective, it's not going to be something that ATVs are going to want to, or to be able to justify the AI investment in.
Yeah, and it was mostly about what is available in the tools today. And we also found some interesting things about what our current, what our created tool vendors currently working on, something that could be expected tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the key one for me was service configuration management, because that's almost, the phrase "orange is the new black." If the black is knowledge management at the moment, the orange is service configuration management. That it's almost as though people aren't necessarily ready for it, or customers aren't necessarily ready for it, but it's seen as something that is going to really, in the same way knowledge management is being brought to life with AI, service configuration management will be. So for me, that's leading the pack of the next wave of AI investments. The asset management, problem management, I see these very much as a proactive thing, a predictive thing as well, predictive, all the P's. That, I mean, in some ways, we've got to start talking about trust here. And I think a lot of if we think about how organizations are A, adopting now, and B, going to adopt AI-based capabilities in the future, we need to have that increasing level of trust. And in some ways, we can see that things like incident management or service request management in particular, and also knowledge management to some extent, we can be quite trusting in the AI capabilities. But when we get to service configuration management, IT asset management, and problem management in particular, we need to be far more trusting than perhaps we are now. And trust is definitely growing. One of the things that we found in a previous survey was that you almost had a cycle or a chain, that people don't just trust AI, that you have to invest in the AI to have success with the AI, which then develops the trust in AI. And then it comes back, and then you invest more, you have more success, and you get more trust. And it is a cycle or a wheel. And I think this is definitely something that we'll see with these, at least the top three of these R&D areas. The measurement and reporting, in many ways, I think this is one of the biggest wins that we in the ITSM community is having with AI, but it wasn't necessarily one of the things that we were sold in the first place. That, people talk about intelligent workflow automation, things like incident classification and routing, etc. They see the chatbots or the virtual agents. They see the virtual assistants for IT staff or co-pilots, and these three things have, I think, focused us in on an AI-enabled world where all three of these things are really giving us efficiency benefits. They're making us more productive, whether we're service providers or service receivers. And the whole measurement and reporting side of things has slowly, I think, crept up the list of what's most valuable. And if you think about how you use AI in your personal life, yes, you might use it for research, but I bet you use it to find things out that you didn't know existed, or situations that weren't necessarily as you expected them to be. Obviously, there's the big caveat that we bring back the trust card into the equation, and AI doesn't always get it right. And in fact, it reminds me, and I'm jumping ahead here, one of the sound bites, and in fact, I don't even think it made a sound bite, but it came out in one of the conversations with ATV personnel, was AI was described, or people using AI was described as moving from a traditional bicycle to an electric bicycle. And you think, yeah, I can sort of understand that, because you have to do less legwork and you can go faster than you can even with more legwork on a traditional bike. But it does make you think that, can you ride an electric bike if you can't ride a traditional bike? And
Exactly.
I don't know the answer, because I can ride a bike. So I know I need to find someone who can't ride a bike to then see if they can ride an electric bike. And I think the same is very true in ITSM for AI capabilities, that there's a danger that people are using the technology but not necessarily understanding whether the technology is right or wrong. And again, I think it's something we can do in our personal lives, that we don't necessarily spot all of the errors. But anyway, we need to move on, don't we? I'd already warned Dimitri, I talk far too much. I don't get out much, and
Yeah, thank you
once
so
I
much.
start, I
Thank you
keep
so much.
going.
It's really interesting. So to me, it more looks like an electrical bike with just one wheel, and it takes some time to adopt to this technology and be able to ride this bike. But yes, we also have some sound bites in these reports, and the questions that we asked our tool vendors are also presented in the screen. And I don't think that we have much time to discuss like target audiences for this report, but this information will be available for you in this slide deck when you download it, and if you're interested to take a look at deeper look at this. So I would, Stephen, do you think we could still pick up a couple of questions? Because it seems to me that we are almost over
Yeah,
time, but
sure.
probably just 1 or 2 minutes.
If people have questions, I mean, I can quickly read some off here.
Yeah,
So someone asked about ServiceNow. Are they part of ATV? I guess
not
that's
not yet, not yet.
okay.
We're working with them, but not yet.
Okay, that was an easy one. Uh, Somebody's asked, what is the ITIL, or what are the ITIL practices we need to focus on for non-AI or AI? And my answer to that is, and I always say the cheesy, it's very much a consultant answer because it ultimately depends. And in the same way, if we go back 15 plus years, I remember writing about the IT service management tool being a very good first corporate initiative to try out this SaaS thing that was being spoken about more and more. And in many ways, a similar thing can be applied to AI. That what are the lowest risk opportunities, but also which opportunities offer the greatest value. And I think, and hopefully Dimitri will back me up on this, that there's a lot of talk at the moment about agentic AI or AI agents or autonomous agents. And I think for an organization that's starting out with AI, and I bring that trust card back in very quickly, that the biggest wins and the safest wins are going to be where the AI is augmenting people and it's assisting people, making them or allowing them to be better versions of themselves. So things like the AI assistant or co-pilot for service desk agents is probably a good one. In terms of the virtual agent or chatbot, it does offer a wealth of benefits, but a bit like the service portal or the self-service portal of old, you don't want to go off half-cocked, that you've got one chance probably to get it right. So it's going to require an awful lot of work to make sure that whatever you have is roadworthy, for want of a better phrase, before you start to let service receivers or end users or business colleagues, whatever you want to call them, use it. Because if you throw something out there and it doesn't work, or it doesn't work the way they want it to work or expect it to work, then they're probably not going to use it, which is the problem we had 15 years ago with self-service portals, where I could quite easily stand up in front of a room and say 80% of organizations have got one, and they'll be lucky to get 10%, 12% of people using them. Long answer, but I think I need to close the loop and say it really does depend on your organization, risk appetite, what's most important, lots of different factors.
Yeah, and it also depends on where you start, because it's probably not greenfield and you're not starting doing things from scratch. You already have something, but also some problems that need to be addressed. So yeah, I would definitely agree that it depends on a specific case. So it seems to me that we are currently run of time. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for this session. And please download this report and take a look yourself. And maybe you will find something that would be applicable for your case and valuable for your business. And have a great day. see you some later. Thank you so much. Bye.